Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining the stream. We're going to get started in just a couple minutes. All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Matthew Espinosa. I'm an events manager at Geekdom. Thanks for joining us today for this stream. Today we'll be going over how to easily track PPP funds with QuickBooks Online with Steve Chase. If you're not familiar with our Geekdom online workshop series, or this is your first time tuning in, we've been hosting these online workshops to give a chance for some of our members to share some of their expertise and what they're knowledgeable on with other members in the community. So we appreciate Steve today leading us on this topic. The one disclaimer I want to make is we'll be talking a lot about using QuickBooks to manage and track these funds. But when it comes to the funds specifically and more information on that, please consult your local bank or reach out to your lawyer or legal companies for more information on specifically those funds. We also know some people in the community, so happy to make introductions if needed related to that topic. But for today, we'll be kind of focusing on the QuickBooks side of this discussion. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Steve, who will get his screen shared and set up and ready to go. But we encourage questions throughout this whole process. So please, in the comments or the chat box, post any questions you may have, and I'll be in the background getting those over to Steve. So Steve, feel free to kick us off.
All right, thank you, Matthew. All right, so I am going to share with you a presentation on QuickBooks Online, how to easily track your PPP funds and using QuickBooks Online. So here we go. I do have a test account that's set up with dummy data. And one of the first things you're gonna want to make sure that you have things organized is your chart of accounts. So that's gonna be number one. On any accounting software, you're gonna wanna navigate to the chart of accounts. And there's 5 major types of accounts. Assets are your banks. That's where your PPP funds are gonna get dispersed to. Liabilities, you are gonna have a loan. So we need to set up a loan for the PPP loan from the SBA. And then we're gonna have income and expenses and equity, but specifically we're gonna wanna look at, do you have the correct account setup? So when you run your P&L, let's do that real quick. Reports, profit and loss. You're gonna wanna see, okay, do I have my payroll set up correctly here? And number 2, the biggest mistake people make in QuickBooks is they data from the bank feeds at the net level. So you got to make sure that, say you're using ADP or Gusto to do your wages. When it hits your bank feeds, it actually shows you your net going out. And you don't want to put the net on your profit lines. You want to put the gross. The other thing is your taxes gets messed up a little bit, because when you run a third-party payroll outside of QuickBooks, you have your taxes, and taxes will just say taxes, and that can include the employer portion, state portion, and of course individual employees, what their FICA withholdings are that are completely separate than your books, and you're just remitting that through that. So your first thing is to make sure that your P&L has the correct gross wages. As far as tracking your payroll cost, we are not tracking Social Security, Medicare on the employer side. You want to have that in your books, of course, but what are eligible costs are your state, local taxes there. Okay. Rent and lease, that's going to be important, as well as your utilities as well. So let's go take a look at tracking some funds. And so here we go. The first thing that's going to happen is probably you're going to get the EIDL. I imagine many folks who are getting PPP in the first round, we applied for the EIDL, Economic Injury Disaster Loan. And so that's up to $10,000. And if you just got an EIDL, you're going to see it pop in the bank feeds some point, and it's like, oh, there's money in my bank account. So here's what we do for that right off the get-go. Okay, so it's probably going to say EIDG in the bank feeds, as far as what I've been seeing on a lot of folks is EIDG that represents. So here we have $8,000 that came in, and it's coming in my bank feeds. All right, if you're not familiar with QuickBooks, you can connect up to 16,000 bank accounts to QuickBooks Online, and transactions will download every night into your account, and then you can review and categorize from there. So pretty powerful stuff there. Credit cards, bank accounts, PayPal accounts, that's what you want to do. Okay. So let's talk about this EIDL, how you'd set that up. The first thing you do is you go to Chart of Accounts and you click New. And we're going to use a special category called Other Income. The reason why we want to do Other Income is it falls at the very bottom. It's not counted in the gross sales at the top. It's at the very bottom. And we can just call it EIDL. And then real important, non-taxable. That way your accountant can separate that, and that is going to be treated outside of that. Okay, so when we actually are in the bank feeds, here we have it. So I'm going to create a new vendor. Money out is vendor, so SVA. And the category is going to be that EIDL. And here's our memo that we have. And it's possible you would have a confirmation code with that. You do want to keep track of your confirmation code if you got one, because that will be part of the application process for forgiveness on the EI or the PPP. Okay. And so this is going to hit the books on 4/15. I'm going to click add and show you how that's going to affect your book. So if I go back and run the profit and loss report, it is going to, you can see our top number here, 147,000 in sales. No, it doesn't show up in the sales area. It doesn't show up in income. It shows up all the way at the bottom. Way down here is where it's going to go. And so non-taxable, put it, information there. So that's how you track the EIDL. Okay. Now let's run our balance sheet to see if we have any existing loans, because in a second we're going to add a PPP loan. The balance sheet tells you what your assets are, what your loans are, okay, credit card, and what our equity is. Assets equals liabilities plus owner's equity. We have Lucas Pacioli to thank for that. He is the Italian mathematician who helped create the double entry bookkeeping system. So there he is, and he was good friends with Leonardo da Vinci, and they're buddies. And anyways, so that's the time frame that we've been working on accounting since that era. He was the first one to publish debits equal credits in the whole double entry bookkeeping. So, all right. So what we need to know here is how do we go about setting up an $87,000 loan to the SBA and have it as a long-term liability. So you have current liabilities or loans you plan on paying off within 1 year, and over a year it's a long-term liability. So I'm going to go to my bank feeds. The date's going to be important here to recognize. So if I'm in the banking section, we'll see that we received, our funds were dispersed on April 20th. So that's an important date to go by, to know that. That's one way that will start your 8-week covered period here. So it's definitely not income. We don't treat that the way we did the EIDL. We treat that as a long-term liability loan. So I'm going to go to chart of accounts, and I've got to add a new one. And it's a liability, so long-term. Okay. And then we'll just call this PPP SBA loan. If you wanted to put in your confirmation number there, you could. And so that's what is required at that point. Don't need to worry about this yet or at all. All right. And so I could go in to create a bank deposit. Make sure that I have the correct account. Can't quite, there we go. Make sure I have the correct account. Make sure we have the right date. So 4/15. Okay, so it's from the SBA. And it's the PPP long-term liabilities. Make a little note here. And then the dollar amount. Okay. So I could attach any source documents to that, put a memo, maybe who the banker is and their phone number. You want to be really good friends with your banker and talking to them about what kind of requirements they're going to need from you as you do it. We do have the application. It's 12 pages to get it forgiven, but it's the key is just relationships and doing what's right. So once you receive those funds, as of last Friday, the SBA has a kind of a guidance on when your 8-week period starts. Okay, so I've got this tracker here. So we start off, and you'll have access to this tracker here. You start off and you type how much you received in PPP, so 87,000. And then you type the day that you received it here. Okay, and that's going to tell you when your 8 weeks is up. Okay, it's a little formula here that does 8 times 7 to 8 weeks. Now, we now have new guidance where you can actually use a different date. And so if you're a restaurant and your first payroll may be later because you're not open yet. So you now have the ability to do what's called an alternative payroll covered period date. And what that means is you select the first date of your payroll after you receive those funds. So this is an either or on your application. You want to choose one or the other. So if you weren't going to use the alternative, you just delete that out basically. and set that up right there. One or the other, okay? All right, so now let's go match that. So I'm gonna go back to the banking and let's sort this. There it is, right here it is. So that's a match. Why is it a match? Because it's already in our register. It's already there. It already sees the 87,000. So that's good. No, you don't want to add it. You want to match it. And let's take a look at how that hits our books. So it's a 1% interest loan, 2 years. If I run the balance sheet, we're going to see $87,000 as a PPP SBA loan right here. So our liabilities increased in that zone. So now after the 8 weeks is up, we are going to have a report in QuickBooks that will show us how much we spent on rents, how much we spent on utilities, how much we spent on payroll cost. And so let's start to track that information, okay? So one of the things I'm gonna do is I'm gonna run a report. I'm gonna start going after the rents. All right, so I'm gonna go banking. We've got Mountain View properties where we have our rent. So if you're doing catch up and you've got just a whole bunch of stuff, what's neat is if you sort this by description alphabetically, your bank feeds, it bypasses the date transaction, and we can now scroll down to try to find, here we go, 1,500. So I do not have a vendor. It's always best practice in QuickBooks to type who you're paying. That way you can run a report later to see which vendors you're paying the most to. So Mountain View offices. That's our vendor. Yeah, I could add details and track. If I had a contract, I could attach it here, add more information here if I wanted to. That is a rent. Okay. And then you'll see, I've got a YouTube video on tags, which is awesome, but tempted to do that, but we'll stay with the agenda here. Tags can help you track monies in a wild way that's very powerful. And that's a new feature that not every version has that. So that's just came out. All right, let's just do rent here. Okay, and so it's interesting that sometimes, yeah, there we go, adding it. Sometimes I'll get a rule that pops up. That's probably a good idea. Mountain View, basically, hey, money out of it's either money out, money in. So for PPP tracking, you could do money out for utilities and phone, internet, rents. So when the bank text says Mountain View offices, what do I want to do? I want to assign it as an expense transaction, rent, here's my payee, and then I'll have the ability to click save or auto add. Be careful with that because it's can be a mistake if you do a rule that messes up. It'll hit your books in the wrong ways, but that's what you get right here. I can just add these right here. Awesome. Okay. Next, I'm going to do just Humana. Okay, so Humana is our insurance. Now it's insurance, but as far as PPP tracking goes, we're going to put it as a benefit under group health insurance. Right there. That's good. Awesome. And I got, while we're at it, let's do SAWS. Okay, so I'm going to put SAWS as water, utility as a sub account. All right, my dog's wanting to do some bookkeeping with us too. He's one of the smartest bookkeeping dogs I know. All right, okay. All right, so A few more, guys. I know you're seeing this here, but it's super important that you get your transactions here, what it is. So CPS. And this is going to be utilities, right? But then if you do have, oops, I had a typo, electric. Yeah, I should leave it like that. How about this? Let's get smart. Let me check all of these right here. Come up to the top and select 4 items. I'm going to click update. Then this is cool. I can do it all at one time. Why doesn't it show? Oh, that's the category. Okay, utilities, CPS, then apply and accept. Boom, they're in the process there. All right, let me pause here. Show you what I just did in about 10 minutes or so. I coded a bunch of things. If I were to click on this magnifying glass, I could easily find what I just coded, right? That's a whole lot of time I just saved. In the old days of bookkeeping, you would have had to type each of these dollar amounts and dates and all that. Well, let's just run a quick P&L by month to see how it's looking so far. So profit and loss. I've got this year to date, and then I can break it up by months. Run report. So it's starting to show, here's our rent. Here's our gas, electric. Here's our water. Here's our EIDL that came in as non-taxable income. Yeah, so really going forward, what we've got to do is we've got to pick, okay, when is our starting date, right? So that's at our Excel file. So if we're going to assume that we want to track 4/15, that means that our start date's going to be 4/15, our end date's 6/10. Okay, so I'm going to create a custom report. Starting on 4/15, then going out 8 weeks. What was it, June 20th? June 10th. Okay, and then, okay, so cash and accrual probably are going to do, that's going to take some maneuvering, especially if you have bills that you pay your bills on rent and accrue cost. So that's going to be a different, that could influence your output here. But assuming that you're just straight cash sending out, make sure you know which one you are. But at any point here, we can start to see this is our 8-week span period. So got to go ahead and save this so we don't lose those dates there. And you might just call it PPP 8-week covered period. The cool thing is if I got more than one team member, I can share it with the group. I can have this emailed automatically to people who don't even have accounts. I could set that up here. But you might have one called covered period. You might want to have alternative period. You know, you kind of play around with that. To find that report down the road, you would just go to reports, custom report, and run it from there. Is how you would get that scheduled report going forward here. Okay. All right. Let's go back to the bank feeds so we can start to see payroll, because that's a significant amount that we need to start looking at. So banking. Okay. So check this out, guys. Here's what we know. We know that it found $6,000 going out. It says ADP wages net. Okay. Well, that's not always that. You don't want to book your net to the P&L. You want to find the gross. So that's going to require that you integrate. And the cool thing about QuickBooks Online is that you can go out and connect to hundreds of apps to find apps that will connect perfectly. Well, I shouldn't say perfectly, but that's the goal to this. So if you have any third-party payroll, you are going to want to do yourself a favor and learn how to integrate that and connect the APIs, in other words, so they can talk to each other. When you run payroll in one of these third-party applications, that data gets sent over to QuickBooks, and then you can match it. And so that's kind of what it's going to look like here. And typically, they will come in the form of a journal entry. I'm going to share with you kind of how that might look in your world here. Okay, so I'm going to just open up this and make a quick copy of that. Okay, so the nice thing is it's going to come in with the right date. It's going to have your true gross wages on one of the debits. Also is going to break out your payroll taxes that the employer can put on the P&L. And then you're going to see basically cash out as credits of your bank account that you linked up, and that's what we want to match. So notice $6,000 is not going to hit the P&L. What's going to hit the P&L is this number here. And these are just kind of fake numbers here. It doesn't, just to do a quick demo here. Okay, so I'll save this journal date. And so the journal date is important because that's going to be what we try to match out here. When I save and close that. Now, let me show you where that's going to be found here. Okay. So you can see that it has found this $1,125, and it's giving me a choice to select the journal entry 6 or 2. Well, the period we want to match is the date out. So this is the period here. Sometimes the dates aren't perfect, but it's make sure you correct it to the right payroll period, and then you just match it. So boom, that's what we're trying to match, and that's it. That's an ad there. Okay. Here's the same thing, 6,000. We're going to match that. Okay. So awesome. Awesome. All right. So let me go ahead and do one more quick copy of that journal entry and do it for the first of the month. So we're going to just copy this just so we have 2 payroll cycles for May. I'm going to match it to 7. That's what I'm matching. Matching. I think it got it. Oh boy, this is not the find other matches. Don't know how I got on that, but well, okay. At any rate, let's continue on because we'll see for sure how the P&L looks. That's what matters here. So I go to reports, run that. Let's see how we're looking on payroll. No, okay. Oh yeah, here it is. Whew. Okay, it's right here. So I've got $6,200. That includes 1 payroll cycle there. So I'm not sure if I actually copied that originally. Let's try that one more time. Copy, change the date, save and close. Okay, I got that. And just let's do, yeah, that would be 2 weeks, 2 payroll periods. Okay. All right, that's more like it. Then my matching, I'll do a better job at that next time, but cool. So now on that tracker, what we ought to be doing on that tracker is we ought to be putting in these numbers for the receipts, because you're going to want to have receipts for everything. That would include for payroll, just running your payroll reports out of the process, whoever's processing your payroll, the rents, utilities, all that. You want to have receipts for everything. So if we go and show you the tracker, you know, how that would look is, you know, let's say 5/1/2020 is your vendor's kind of ADP, and the category is payroll, and it's 6,200 there. And then let's just say that Texas workforce commission, that also is going to be included in your payroll costs. Let's just say I could just make something up here. Okay. All right. So I've got a link to receipt. So, you know, you can put in your Google Drive or OneDrive and just copy and paste some kind of a link and just sample. Whatever the case might be. So boom, that would open up a screenshot or a source document on that. FYI, in QuickBooks Online, you can send all of your receipts to receipts@quickbooks.com. And what's really powerful is it then looks at the receipt, reads it with its AI and text recognition, OCR that is, and it will then put it inside the transaction itself automatically. So in order to do that, you got to register an account for receipts@quickbooks.com. I got to show you this because this is going to be, you're going to want all your receipts for your rents and all that. So you go to banking, you just click on receipts and pair up your email address with the forwarding, and then boom, take a picture with your phone, send it to receipts@quickbooks.com. It will show up down here. You match it, goes inside the transaction. So in other words, if I've had a rent receipt and here's what would happen is while I'm in my rent, I'd come down to rent here. And then I would click that, and it would just be automatically right here. It'd be automatically right there, which is awesome. Okay. So that calculation, now our goal is to spend 75%, right, on our payroll. So what I created was this little column over here to the side. We can see that. So let's do this. Right now, this is just G1 divided by B1. What does that mean? G1's right above 6,301 divided by 87,000. So our goal is to get it to be, so when we run our next payroll, let's say our next payroll gross cost, let's imagine that payroll, watch what happens here. You got this formula here. Let's say our next payroll is $8,000. Okay, boom. So now we're at 16.4% of that. So we want to keep our eyes on that tracker there to see how, obviously the goal right now is to spend at least 75% of your loan to cover your payroll costs, and then up to 25% on the other things such as rents, utilities, interest on mortgages, and yeah, that's it. All right, let's see if I can start winding down here. Then we can do Q&A if we've got questions from anyone in the audience here. Lastly, if you want to actually take your P&L covered period report and you don't want to see, that's probably a bad example because we got stuff all over the place here. let me do something real quick. Let me add something that was for today. If I can find, I don't think, I'm just gonna have to do a manual one. Let's do expense. I'm gonna do an advertising expense. Entreport. And it's today. So I'm gonna hit the letter T as a shortcut for today. Yep. And so let's say I put on my credit card advertising, and let's just say that it was $499.99. Okay. Save and close. That means my liability goes up by that amount. My P&L hits on that date. So if I go to reports, run my covered 8-week period, advertising is going to be in here. See it? But I don't want that. So to do that, and I also probably am going to want to do totals only as well. Yeah, there we go. So how do I take out something that's not PPP related? You go up to customize, then you select filter. And at this particular point in time, we're going to click the distribution account. They're all in here. So it takes some time, but what you'd want to do is you'd want to select what accounts are eligible for PPP forgiveness. So when you go back to the bank, say, hey, I paid all of these here. Okay, so payroll, we would include the state local SUI, but not the Medicare and the Social Security. Definitely include wages. And then we definitely want to include utilities. All the utilities. Okay. So run report. There we go. That's what we're talking about right there. So now I just need to save that over top of it. All right. And so we'll come back here in a moment. Let me go ahead and add our group 401k that the owner are paying for benefits on behalf of the matching, the 401k matching. So I go banking, came out of the Frost account. I just need to find it. So here it is. We want, so a lot of times QuickBooks completely messes up what it suggests. I see a lot of people kind of get tripped over that because, you know, we always want to believe what we read, right? On the internet, everybody's right on the internet. But stay alert. Don't cautiously click add just because it's easy to click add. Because if I clicked add, then all of a sudden my 401k just got put into the wrong account. One of my favorite apps of all time, guys, is Rewind, and it's a company out of Canada that lets you restore backups to a prior time. This is a lifesaver. A lifesaver. If I delete something, I can restore it. I can go back to the minute to another time in most circumstances to do it. And QuickBooks Online out of the shell does not give you that. You couldn't call QuickBooks and say, I need to go back to yesterday. They couldn't do that for you. You'd have to manually go in and undo your mistakes. But if you make a mistake 7 weeks ago and you want to restore it, you can rewind to a prior time as long as it's not a closed period. All right. So anyways, so here's our ADP. We'll say that's our ADP 401k plan. And then for here, there we go. That's what we're talking about here, add. And as long as that, I didn't check the date, but we'll find out in a second, was that date inside our 8-week cover period? If so, we'll see the 401k. Yeah, there it is right there. Cool. And then just a one click on top of that actually lets me drill down to see the transactions underneath of that. So that's awesome. I mean, you could just take this right here, export it, or email it to yourself, print, export to Excel, all that good stuff there. And again, we're working on the covered periods. The one caveat is to make sure, are you cash or accrual, because there will be opportunities to taking payroll under when it was, that's the word I'm looking for, pay when it was accrued. Yeah. All right, Matthew, why don't we go ahead and turn it back to you and field, if we have any fields of questions, I'd be happy to see what I can do to help out if anybody's got any questions.
Okay, so I'm looking at the chat right now and don't have any questions at the moment. But for anybody watching, this is the time to, if you have any questions related to the workshop or anything Steve talked about, we'll wait for the next couple seconds here for you to.
Okay. Cool. While that's happening, now would be a good time to talk about how the that tracker, if you're interested in the tracker spreadsheet, this is the link. This is the link. I don't know if we can share that, Matthew, in the chat room. And
yeah, I'll share that in the comments.
Okay, in the comments. So that will get you the tracker if you're interested in that spreadsheet to track your receipts and such. Yep.
So I still don't see any at the moment. So maybe Steve, if there's any kind of closing remarks or anything you'd want to add, and then also maybe ways to get in contact with you, or.
Sure. All right. So I would just say that there's a SBA webinars happening. That's not it. Check out the SBA from Houston. They're doing an awesome job on giving out information, because this stuff is changing all the time. So there's the website there. SBA.gov, Offices District Texas Houston Resources. But a quick Google search for SBA Houston will pull you here. And what I like about them is they've been putting out these daily webinars. So if you and you can go back and watch the day before, which is really cool. So yeah, check it out. This is, you just click here, it opens up Microsoft Teams. You can just jump in, ask questions there. These two guys that are doing it are doing a really good job trying to stay on top of things. I mean, you just wait 24 hours and who knows what's going to be different next 24 hours. So I would go there. The other thing is read the CARES Act. You can go to the Congress website and actually read the legislation. And so that's important, that people should know that you can read the text, and Control F is your best friend when you're going through that. Let's see. The final interim rule will be helpful as well. It looks kind of scary there, but it does pay to have some diligence, and so just SBA.gov would be where news information is going to be coming out here. So make sure it's .gov and not .com. Just beware of scammers. This is unprecedented time, and there's just been a lot of folks impersonating the SBA and banks, and just, if it sounds too good to be true, it is. All right, so but here's some information here. If you want to get in contact with me, it's probably the easiest way is just to head to sequentiasolutions.com. There I've got lots of educational videos on QuickBooks and Excel. It's kind of where my sweet spots are. So if you want to just check out some, talked about those tags. This is one of the coolest things. Like, for example, you can watch a video on how to do tags. So, all right. So yeah, that's it. Matthew, thanks for inviting me to do this. I had fun.
Absolutely. We appreciate your time, Steve, and thanks for leading this workshop. And again, if there's any questions for Steve, reach out to him on his website. I'll post that in the comments. And then if there's Any questions for Geekdom, feel free to reach out to me at matthew@geekdom.com. But that concludes today's workshop. Stay tuned for next week for our next upcoming one on sales. Thanks again for everybody tuning in. See you, Steve.
All right, guys, take care.